This podcast is hosted by RPP.
If you are easily spooked, creeped, or offended, this might not be the podcast for you.
Hello, Fridgies. Welcome back to I Think My Fridge is Haunted, a very creepy podcast for very creepy people. To all our new subscribers, welcome. And to all our existing subscribers, welcome back. Now, since I've started podcasting on YouTube, my most popular videos by far have been those where I've focused on the infamous mushroom murders. Now, for those of you that are not familiar with the case, it was a crime that threw Australia into a frenzy when, in 2023, 48-year-old mum of two, Erin Patterson, invited her estranged husband, Simon, to lunch, along with his parents, Gail and Don, and Gail's sister Heather and her husband, Ian. Erin said she wanted the family there because she wanted to talk to them about a health issue. On the evening before the lunch, Simon texted Erin to tell her that he would not be attending because he didn't want to feel uncomfortable. This made Erin quite upset, and she lied to him that she had put in so much effort into this lunch and that she wanted him to be there nevertheless. See, the two had been broken up for 8 years, but had recently hit a rocky patch in their marriage-not-marriage. At the lunch, Erin served individually made beef Wellingtons with beans and mashed potatoes on the side. Oddly, her dog was not invited to the lunch, and neither were her children, who were sent to the movies. Lucky for them, and for Simon, they didn't attend. Because inexplicably, everyone at the lunch, except for Erin, became terribly ill and were sent to hospital for immediate and intensive treatment. Tragically, Erin's special lunch caused the deaths of Gail, her sister Heather, and her husband Don over the next several days. And although Erin claimed to be suffering from a severe stomach upset, she still seemed fine to be able to drive her children to appointments and was even seen on CCTV wearing white pants. After a trial lasting almost 3 months, EPAT was found guilty on all murder counts, including the attempted murder of Ian Wilkinson. Now, Ian spent some months in hospital, but made it through and was able to attend most of the trial. We've talked about many Australian true crime cases on this channel. For example, Thomas Keir, the killer husband of Sydney, the abduction of Gordana Kotevsky, the murder of Arnie Mahayat, and the disappearance of Elizabeth Membry. These are all compelling cases, but this one made us all into crazy people. Why? Let's look into 5 reasons why we're all obsessed with the mushroom murders. And here's my first point. This was not a violent crime. Now, this is an odd one, because usually with true crime enthusiasts, the more blood, the more intrigue. Not here. There was no blood at the crime scene, no hidden bodies to uncover. In fact, the crime scene itself was extremely unconventional. It was a kitchen and dining area in the suburbs of rural eastern Victoria. It could be anyone's house. It wasn't fancy, it wasn't decrepit. It was just a normal family home. But what the crime scene lacked in violence, the crime itself made up for in opportunities for theories and conspiracies. In this country, this case has arguably had as much media coverage as the O.J. Simpson case. But in the murders of Nicole Brown and Ron Goldman, the scene was bloody, with both victims receiving multiple fatal stab wounds. Even Nicole's dog was found wandering the streets covered in blood. But not here. In fact, the victims of this crime walked out of the house feeling completely fine, unaware that they had been poisoned. So for some reason, we find intrigue in the fact that this was not a violent crime. My second point is, she's so normal. Erin Patterson doesn't look like a killer. Or let me put it into a context that people want to hear. She doesn't look like a gold digger who would kill for wealth, prestige, and power. Or maybe she would. You tell me in the comments. If that driveway interview had have been filmed with a Botoxed trophy wife in high heels and huge sunglasses, that trial would not have gone for half as long as it did. I just can't fathom what has happened. All I can tell you is that I can't fathom what has happened. They were so good to me. I just can't fathom what has happened. Erin Patterson is quite different from that, although the general public seem to think that she is some kind of gold digger. She's even been described by past colleagues as, quote, slovenly in appearance. You could walk past EPAT in a supermarket pre-July 2023 and not even notice her, and she knows this. She's not a glamorous person, and she's not looking for spotlight in the traditional sense. She's a mum. She's a volunteer at the church. She used to run a second-hand bookshop. She worked at the RSPCA. What can go wrong? Who could possibly think her guilty of a triple homicide? And that brings me to my third point, the audacity. I'm talking about all the lies, the deflections, the gaslighting, all the different versions of the story. The pure audacity of Erin Patterson to think that she could carry out this crime that is filled with holes. This crime's got a timeline with more holes than you can stick a Starbucks straw through. But at the same time, it's a classic did she or didn't she story. Because she's so unassuming that for a moment there during the trial, she and her lawyer, Mr. Colin Mandy, had us just with that little bit of doubt, just that little bit of doubt in our mind that made us wonder, what if it was an accident? Going back to talking about conventional crime scenes, let's talk about my fourth point. The murder weapon was a dehydrator. Like I mentioned with the Nicole Brown and Ron Goldman murder, and let's face it, OJ did it. Like, come on. In that crime scene, there was a hell of a lot of blood. It was a bloodbath. Inside and outside the house. Both victims were savagely attacked with sharp objects. And when you think of the majority of murders, you think of guns, knives, strangulation by a rope. You don't think of the murder weapon being a sunbeam dehydrator. And when you get past the truly ridiculous nature of this fact, the dark truth is that this was no crime of passion. The mushrooms were researched, foraged, and dried over the course of a number of weeks or months. What took place on the 29th of July 2023 in Leongatha was a carefully thought out recipe for disaster, which leads me to my fifth point. It's a crime that no one saw coming. When we talk about true crime, it's often because we think that we are prepared as a potential victim. We watch true crime documentaries, we listen to true crime podcasts, and we think, I would never get into that situation. I would never walk down that dark alley. I would never give that creepy guy my number. But this was no dark alleyway. This was the comfortable dining room of a suburban home. And apart from that, it was in broad daylight on a Sunday afternoon. And Erin Patterson was no stranger hiding in the shadows. In fact, she was very well known to the family. This was a crime carried out in plain sight with very few obvious glaring red flags to speak of. Or was it? What were those previous attempted murder charges against Simon that Erin was charged with at the end of 2023? We heard all about them in the media and then they just went away. And those charges were suddenly dropped just a day or two before the trial was to commence. Now, it was surmised by the media that on several occasions over the past couple of years, Simon Patterson was sent to hospital with severe and unknown stomach issues. On one occasion, he was apparently at death's door, leading the public to wonder if EPAT had been experimenting with death cap toxins for some time leading up to that lunch in July 2023. And then the charges were dropped. So what's that about? Please leave your comments down below in the comments section if you're watching us on YouTube. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram at I Think My Fridge is Haunted. Until next time, everybody, be creepy, but don't be a creep.